What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the 20 Percenters podcast. Mike Anders here at the Nutrition Coaching Institute Level 1 certification with Cassidy Dickson. How are you, darling?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're the mentorship director?
Yes.
Right? So everybody that opts into that next level of coaching has access to you to kind of guide the path, right?
Yes.
Cool, cool. And we've had Jason on my previous podcast, Feed Me, Fuel Me, and we were exposed to Jeff and I were exposed to the Level 1 certification. We sat through the weekend, and I got to tell you, the level of coaching that the people that come through your program receive is second to none.
Right.
The way you break it up into 2 days. Day one is just the information of nutrition.
All the science.
Yeah. And then the black and white of it.
Yep.
Right. And then you add the color, if you will, with the context of people.
Yes.
In day 2.
Application is the fun day is what we usually say.
And I just love the application part. You know, we sat on the panel last night, and I thought there was something really special there. I thought some very intelligent questions were asked, and everybody having the opportunity to share their journey and the diversity of how we got here.
Yeah.
Was just incredible to me. And I thought yours in particular was phenomenal in terms of starting out in the coffee shop. And I didn't know you were there for as long as you were.
Yeah, no one does. It was my first job.
And then, becoming a elite CrossFit athlete, winning a national championship in Olympic weightlifting, right? And then, making that shift into where you're at now with nutrition coaching and being the director of mentorship and whatnot. Walk us through your path. Like, where did it all start for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. It's a loaded question, but I'm going to just go for it and tell you all of it.
We got time. Let's go.
So, I guess starting as an athlete, I was a gymnast I was full of energy. When I was like 4 years old, I climbed out of our yard, like a 6-foot fence. My mom was like, all right, you've got to get into some kind of class that you can use your energy in.
Sure.
So she put me in gymnastics. I was in gymnastics from when I was like 5 until I was 16. And I progressed, and, by the end of it, I was training 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. And when I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, like it was either I needed to move forward and decide I wanted to go and be elite. I mean, the gymnastics programs in Utah aren't great.
Okay.
And complete transparency, I was a tall gymnast, so it was tough. But anyways, I decided not to pursue gymnastics anymore. And when I decided not to do that, I suddenly had 4 or 5 hours a day where I wasn't training, where I was like, what do I do with myself? So I got into a Globo gym setting. It was Gold's Gym. Had no idea what I was doing. So, and then I decided to get a personal trainer.
Yep.
She helped me a little bit with nutrition and just had a training plan for me. And I reached some of the goals that I wanted. I think I went from like 21% body fat to 17 with her. And, I had a lot of success with her, but I was, of course, like anyone else as an athlete too, just always looking for the next thing to keep me going and keep me moving forward. So, I was just telling you this earlier, I started doing kickboxing classes, and I loved that. And I was like, I love this. I want to do kickboxing. I'm going to teach this.
Yeah.
And luckily I was introduced to CrossFit before I decided to actually move forward and pursue that. Again, not that kickboxing is a bad thing, but I had a lot of opportunity with CrossFit. So because of my gymnastics background, when I started CrossFit, I was that jerk athlete that walked in and could pretty much do almost everything.
That's awesome.
On my first couple of days. And people were like,
you're the unicorn.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, from there, I started competing within my first 6 months of CrossFit. Within the year, I had qualified for regionals with my team. From there, I went on to compete in 6 more regionals, 1 year as an individual, 2 years we qualified for the games and competed. And I guess I kind of jumped forward, but in my second year of CrossFit Regionals, I was recruited to do some weightlifting, which I was always just kind of naturally strong. And I had someone reach out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to compete for us. Will you compete with us for Olympic weightlifting? I was like, yeah, I don't really like it, but I mean, sure, I'll try it. He's like, all right, you got to start with this local meet. You got to qualify for nationals first.
Okay.
I was like, okay. So I went and competed at this meet, had no clue what I was doing. In fact, he was like, hey, what was your total? What was your Sinclair? I was like, what's a Sinclair? He was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyways, I qualified for nationals with my first 2 lifts.
Back up real quick for everybody who doesn't know what Sinclair is. What is that?
So it is an equation that calculates like your body weight and your 2 lifts, your lift in a snatch and a clean and jerk.
Okay.
It just calculates all that.
Got it.
So, and some meets, especially more local meets, they will do like your weight class or like it, but if it's smaller, they'll do just Sinclair. So it's just basically like pound for pound.
Got it.
Or I guess not pound for pound.
Your relative strength.
Yes, relative strength.
Got it.
So yeah, got qualified for nationals. 6 weeks later, was competing at nationals again, my second meet, and I won my weight class as a 69 kilogram lifter.
Okay.
Won nationals, so I was a national champion.
Holy shit!
Moving forward, yeah. So no one really knows that side of things. Is like I didn't actually want an Olympic lift. I was like, yeah, I'll do this for fun. Applied myself, worked a little extra hard on it, and won. So
nice.
It was fun. Yeah, It was a fun experience. I didn't dabble too much with Olympic lifting beyond that, just because I knew CrossFit was my passion.
Okay.
That's what I loved. I mean, Olympic lifting meets are great. I love them, but I couldn't find my balance with training both and being great at both.
Sure.
It seemed to be like one always gave a little bit. So, moving forward, I just focused on CrossFit. Like I said, we went to the games a couple times. My husband owns Salt Lake City CrossFit, and he's done an awesome job with putting together some amazing athletes, and it's been really cool to see that grow as well. In the meantime, after this is kind of where like all the nutrition fun stuff and Jason comes into my life.
Okay.
We met through a teammate, and Jason kind of heard my story. He saw me slowly deteriorating as an athlete. He's like, I want to help you, and I'm not going to charge you. I want to help you for free. I think he felt kind of bad for me because I was struggling. And
like,
so,
how was that struggle showing up?
Performance and recovery. I knew that I at that time, I mean, I was eating just like I was eating super clean, air quotes, and it ultimately wasn't enough for what I was trying to do. Got it. So from there, Jason started to work with me. And, at the same time of that, I was also working at a coffee shop. It was my first job. I loved it. The hours were, well, I look back on them now. They were horrendous. Oh, okay. But I was like, this is sweet. I get off at noon every day, and I get the whole day to myself, but I was sleeping for like 5 or 6 hours on top of trying to train and be an elite athlete. Right. So, I mean, of course, Jason, as a nutrition coach, was like, hey, he was always addressing my sleep and my recovery. And I think I mentioned to him once that I was like, I want to work for you at one point and like be a nutrition coach for you. And he never let me forget that, because he was always bugging me and like, hey, when are you going to coach for me? When are you going to take some clients? Let's do this. Yeah. And in the meantime, he was he was my mentor and helping me, teaching me how to do things. I was also that nutrition client that was always asking the why, the how, the when, all of the good stuff.
You're the ones that savvy coaches and mentors see. They see the light before you do.
Yes, exactly. And like, I'm forever grateful for that, because as I see a lot of coaches like that are doing the level 1 now, same thing. Like, they want this, but they don't believe in what they can do. Right. And Jason saw that in me. So luckily, he was just kind of like always poking and prodding me, like, hey, when are you going to do this? Let's go. So I slowly took on clients. But I was also still had the coffee shop over here. It's like my backup plan. Like, it's super, super comfortable. I loved my bosses. I loved the local community that we had. It was locally owned. I mean, those bosses helped me buy my first house when I was 19. So like, awesome. Yeah. So they were like, we just had this huge connection. So I had all of these like obligations, what I felt were obligations to them. But over the course of 2 years is what it took me to transition out of nutrition or out of the coffee shop and go full board, like nutrition coaching.
What was the story you were telling yourself that kept you from pulling the trigger earlier?
It was imposter syndrome. I honestly, like I've always had problems, like even as an athlete, I was always the first one to tell myself that I couldn't do something. It was always someone else. Like, for instance, my husband is my coach. Back then, we weren't married. He was the one that was telling me I could do these things. Like, you can compete in CrossFit. You can compete in Olympic lifting. Like, just put your doubts aside. Like, just show yourself that you can do this. And that was the same thing with nutrition coaching. I told myself for years that I didn't know enough, or, I didn't have the continued education that I thought that I needed. I thought I needed those letters after my name, which we talked a lot about last night, which of course we see the value in that. But I just had I had a list of reasons of why I didn't deserve to be leading people in nutrition.
Yeah. I want to explore the imposter syndrome thing, because I think that it's also indicative of leveling up. Right. Whenever you get to a certain point where you're in flow and things seem easy, if you've got the right people in your life, they're going to start asking you, what's next? Can you do more? You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, let's progress.
They're going to challenge you.
Right. Exactly. And the first question you ask yourself is, am I ready for that? Do I have the credibility for that? Am I believable in that space? Like, do I belong there?
Why do I deserve this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, opening CrossFit PHX, it was like, like, who am I to be followed?
Yeah.
Who am I to lead? And, and like, I led Marines for 7 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's evidence.
Yeah. Everything points to yes. And you're like, this is just not going to work. I can't do this.
But this is different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know, and, but I think that if you find the opportunity and the resistance, right? In that, start to notice like the physical manifestation of fear and excitement, that pit in your stomach, it's the exact same thing. And then you get to make a choice. Am I scared or am I excited?
Right.
Right. When that thought of imposter syndrome, that self-doubt shows up, you can flip that script into, oh, the last time this showed up and I did it anyway, good things happened.
Yes.
Right. And get yourself over that hump.
Almost always something good happens from when you overcome those fears.
But you there's a level of awareness required that I didn't have until a coach pointed it out for me. And now, like, everywhere I see it, I'm like, this is the thing. Let's go do the thing and let's win this deal. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, not to derail your story, but I wanted to really dive into that really quick, because it doesn't matter like how much success you've achieved, how elite you become, or taking over the mentorship program or becoming a nutrition coach. Like that thought is a sign.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, for imposter syndrome is so big, even in the mentorship program with the clients that I deal with. I hopped on a client call the other day and I was like, hey, how are things going? And he's like, it's okay. I've got some imposter syndrome going on. And I was like, all right, tell me more about that. And he goes, well, I've got these clients and, I've helped this person lose 12 pounds over the last month and they're sleeping better. Their energy's great and blah, blah, blah. He tells me all these great things about the 3 guinea pigs that he has from the level 1. And then he's sitting there and I was like, okay, so tell me again about this imposter syndrome. Like, why are you feeling that? And he just started to laugh. He's like, I guess you're right. He's like, I just told you everything that I was doing right and how I'm helping people. He's like, I didn't even validate why I was feeling that way.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, exactly. So sometimes you do like that mindfulness is like, we all know what we can do, but if you're not mindful about it and you can like actually call yourself out on it and be like, hey, I can actually do this shit.
Right.
Or acknowledge when you do it. That's another big part to it.
You know, one of the things that I've really started to explore with my coaches and mentors as of late is celebrating my wins.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we don't do that.
No.
That's not natural. Like, okay, where'd I fuck up? What can I improve?
How can I do it better?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the stuff we focus on, right? Because we fix those things. Obviously, better things happen, right?
Yep.
So that's very natural. It's not a negative process.
Yeah.
However, pause for effect. You have accomplished great things.
Yes.
Give yourself some credit, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, whether it's nutrition related or in the mentorship, that's something I focus on too, because when you have these set goals and it's like, whether it's, all right, I want 10 clients or I want to lose 10 pounds, if you reach that and you don't celebrate it, all of this work right here is for nothing.
Sure.
And then the next goal is the same thing. And you just constantly feel like you're moving, like you're just in drive without making any progress. So that's a huge thing. Celebrating wins. I talk about it all the time with nutrition clients and mentorship clients.
So how did you move from one of Jason's coaches into the director of mentorship?
To be completely honest with you, because Jason forced me. he mentioned it to me and I was like, no, I think I'm good with nutrition clients. Like, this is really good. I'm enjoying
enough.
this.
Like, no good coach will ever accept that as an answer.
You're right. I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, no, I think you need to do the mentorship program. And actually what happened, and it was the best thing that could have ever happened, was they introduced me as a coach in the mentorship, and I had 2 clients and I was working through them nice and slow, like I typically like to go, when in reality I'm actually better if I'm like just thrown in the fire and like figure this shit out. And the mentorship head coach at the time actually left, and I had my 2 clients and I suddenly took on her 40 clients. So I was like, okay, shit. Well, I don't have a choice now. Like, this is go time. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because those, like, that year, the year that I took over the mentorship program, I grew more as a person than I think I ever could have. And seeing that you have the potential for growth, like, I don't know, for me, that like fired me up. I was like, if I can do that shit, I can do anything. Like, present me with anything and I'll do it. So that's kind of how I got into the mentorship, and it was amazing. It's like, this program is my baby. I've loved it. I've rebuilt the entire thing, and I'm constantly adding to it. I love working with my clients. It's awesome.
Are you a fixer at all times? Like,
oh yeah. And I'm constantly adding things. Like I said last night. Oh, so it's funny. I spent a ton of time in rebuilding all of the homework modules and all of the content that's within it. Because I wanted it to get to the point where I could just coach and not have to be creating at the same time.
Sure.
And I was super excited to get it finished, and then I was like, all right, well, this is finished. And I wasn't happy because I still wanted to keep adding things. I was like, I got to over deliver for these guys. So that's what it is. It's like, there's the base of this, but now within that, I've also created expert interviews. I call them like the all-in expert interviews. So it's kind of like the inner circle, but it's me doing like a recorded Zoom call with experts in the space, and all of our coaches talking about coaching style and how to deal with like compliance issues and things like that, or their niche, whatever that coach's niche is. I've added in expert interviews. I've added in client avatars, like live avatars that we're working with, and just a ton of content that's constantly going in for them.
I love the emphasis on the interactive, right?
That's huge.
It's not just here, read this.
Oh yeah.
It's no. Let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
Show me how you're applying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
we had the conversation about credentials, and education and how much weight that actually carries in our field. And, above and beyond, everybody's answers, whether they've validated their education or, acknowledged the idea that you could do it without, right? The common denominator was that strategic mentorship, right? Somebody who can add context to the information,
Right.
to ensure that it's being applied correctly. So you're not doing what you think it says, you're doing what's supposed to be done.
Yeah. If that, like, I feel like some people, like, the difference of having a mentor is doing, like, knowing what you should be doing and actually doing it.
Sure.
A lot of the clients that come to me know exactly what they need to be doing, but they're like, yeah, I know I've needed to do that for a while now and I just haven't done it. I'm like, cool. We have 2 weeks until our next call. Like, let's get that done. Is that realistic? And like, they just need that little push. They want to be pressured a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of people work just like I do, which is under a little bit of pressure.
Sure. I mean, and that's kind of your job as a mentor. You know what I mean? Is to create that stretch. You know what I mean? Like,
Pushing those limits
I know,
just a little bit.
I know you can get 21. Let's do 23.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see that look of holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
I don't, as I'm mentoring, within the coaches in my gym or, some of the consulting that I'm doing, it's like, I don't want you to give me I don't want you to be completely comfortable. Like, I know I can do that.
Yeah.
Or,
that's easy. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I can get that done.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So let's do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not so much that you're stopped in your tracks,
Yeah.
but like that's going to require a little bit of extra.
A little uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
My client that was here last night that stood up and talked, she would get on the phone call with me, and I've had a good amount of clients that say this.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, so I was thinking, and I'm actually kind of scared to tell you this because I know you're going to make me do it. I'm like, okay, now we're talking, like, let's go.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that's huge. And I don't know, having mentors in your life, again, we all talked about the value of that. Like Jason and my husband, had they not been there to push me, every single thing I've done that I've been successful in, nutrition coaching, the mentorship, the CrossFit games, Olympic lifting, I would have never done if I wouldn't have had someone shove me.
Right.
So.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, coming from the world of athletics, we've had somebody behind us in our corner, holding our hand, pushing us into the fire, providing that expectation of excellence all throughout our athletic career. Right. And then for some reason, that concept, kind of like the way Impostor Syndrome shows up a little bit, like, oh, it's different.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not.
Like you got to have the coach.
Yeah.
You got to have a mentor, and above and beyond like the strategic mentorship that you pay for, that aside, there's mentorship all around you. There are people that are in relationships that you admire, that you can reach out and touch. There's people that are killing it in your industry that are social media makes everybody accessible.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised because so many people on the panel operate in the online space exclusively.
Yeah.
How willing they are to engage in conversation above and beyond the people that they're doing business with. That was super surprising to me.
Yeah.
And then the cup of coffee scenario.
Yeah. I thought that was cool how you mentioned that yesterday.
It's so true.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't dive into last night, I almost wish would have been a solid plug for the show. It's like, start a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've had a couple of clients ask about that, and that's actually one thing I'm completely out of the loop with is starting podcasts.
Yeah. It's a trial by fire. There's all kinds of courses and stuff out there now.
Yeah.
But my podcast journey started with 3 iPhones, Facebook Live on a fucking patio at a coffee shop in June.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, Misters ruined the show.
Yeah.
Like everything was soaking wet before it was all said and done. And, but you kind of, the information's out there. Just like everything else, you just have to get started.
Yeah.
You know, the way we started, I look back on it now and it's just absolutely horrible. It's just like,
you see the evolution of it.
I'm embarrassed, you know, but you leave it out. It's the internet. It's there forever, you know, and I leave it out there as a reminder of the progress up to this point.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's exactly what you mentioned before we got started on this. Like if you feel good about the first product you put out, you waited too long.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, you obviously don't want to put out a crap product, but if it's,
you got to start somewhere.
If it's the best you can provide with the tools that you have at the time, you're winning because you're going to get better. And then you go back, you retool, you reiterate, you reproduce, and then boom.
Right.
You know, and it's an ongoing process. Like everything is always being tweaked.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not evolving, it's dying.
You're falling behind. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the podcast thing it's super funny because there are people that I've wanted to get next to, want to talk to, want to pick their brain about. And, you know, when we interviewed Logan Gilbert, he's got the Hold the Standard Summit, and he speaks very, very deeply about leadership and being organizational structure and stuff like that. And one of the things that he touches on is giving people power, right? And it's very easy when, like, the influencer thing, right? Oh, they've got, like, perspective, right?
Yeah.
Sam's got, what'd she say, like 32,000 followers or whatever. And she's like, I'm not that big, you know? And it's just like, I look at that and I'm like, that's a lot of fucking people looking at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like, good for you, right? You're winning. That's like triple what I've got. Okay. But like that dynamic, right? Oh, you know, I don't know if I can sit in the same room with them. I don't know. I don't know if I deserve to have their time, this conversation, whatever. I don't know if I'm ready to ask this question of this person. Right. And for me, the podcast has broken that wall, right? Because now there's that mutual benefit if you're just looking at it strictly from a business standpoint, above and beyond like just a genuine relationship thing. Yeah. It's like, you get to promote your message, you know, we get to, you know, do this whole thing and, you know, it's free advertising, if you will, whatever. But now, like, I have a reason to be the dumbest person in the room and just ask all the questions. You know what I mean? Totally. And, you know, it's just a medium to get me outside my comfort zone to create these conversations. Yeah. You know, totally. I'm genuinely interested in having. And what I've noticed is if you think you're the only one, you're definitely not, you know, as we, you know, was proof in the audience. Like somebody would ask that question, then you see like 7 heads nod. Like, they're like, oh yeah, I was I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, again, like full transparency, I was really nervous going into yesterday. I had no idea what to expect. I knew like Sam was coming. I knew you were going. Jana Breslin was coming, and we finished, and I was like, man, I was so cold. She's like, yeah, I didn't know if I was cold or if I was just nervous. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, she has almost 700,000 followers on Instagram, and she was a little nervous too. I was like, all right, you're okay. Right. You know, like that was normal. So yeah, it's again, like that thing, like you don't really know until you put it out there, and then other people are like, yeah, okay. Oh yeah. I saw the panel, right? When, you guys asked me to be on. Yeah. I was like, me? I had oh my gosh. I said that to Cam. He showed me the flyer and I was like, wait, what? I was like, I'm doing that? He's like, yeah. And like, just like, yeah, of course. And I was like, fuck. Okay. Right? It was such a stretch for me. And I'm talking to my wife yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I'm like, she's like, are you ready for tonight? I'm like, I don't know, you know. And we did the show with Cam and Michael.
Yeah.
And they're like, so what are your expectations? I'm like, fuck, man, I'm just happy to be here.
Right. Yeah. Totally. I know.
I don't want to disappoint.
You're like, I'm here, and that's all I need to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, it was just really cool to be on a panel. There are instances as we move along in our journey that kind of validate things for you, you know, and when, you know, you get asked, you know, you're sought after to do something cool like that, you know, that's validating.
That's cool.
For sure. And then to sit up there and just, as Jason would say, deliver the fire, you know, that came out of that panel. It's just like, okay, like I belong here.
Yeah,
You know what I
I know.
mean?
Yeah, it's exactly true. Like I was talking to my husband on the phone afterward. It's like, how'd it go? I'm like, it was really fun. Like, I'm fired up. Like, I want to crush things, you know, because it's the same thing. It's like, all right, let's go. Like, I belong here, you know? It was I had the exact same, like, come to Jesus moment. Like, I am here and I belong here.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, because it's like, you know, going back to the whole giving people power thing, like you don't get asked to do stuff like that if you haven't proven yourself already. So, you know, it's a leap because it's not you know, everybody up there was super humble, which was
I agree.
also amazing.
Yeah.
You know, nobody really buys into their celebrity, if you will. You know what I mean? I thought that was amazing in terms of how genuine the panel was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you have to talk yourself away from that negative dialogue, you know? It's like, and actually believe the fact that, you know, they wouldn't have asked me to be up here.
Right.
If they thought I was full of shit.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding, right?
Like, okay, so everything I've done up to this point tells me that I belong.
Exactly.
So like, act like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, one of the best coaches I ever had in football used to say about, you know, celebrating in the end zone and showboating and stuff like that. He's like, act like you've been here before.
Yeah.
You know, like you're supposed to do that.
Yep.
You're supposed to be excellent. You're supposed to be good, you know?
Yeah.
That's the whole reason you're here. So act like it.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. The year that we were at the games as a team, I got mad at one of my teammates because he was trying to take pictures with some of the like elite athletes. I was like, don't fucking do that. I was like, you are the elite athlete.
Right.
People take pictures with you. I was like, don't take pictures with more people.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like people that he was going up to getting like wanting to take their pictures with.
Sure.
And that's I know that sounds so silly, but I'm like, no, we are here. Like we are a part of the big show. We're not here to watch the big show.
Right.
And that, yeah. So same thing. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of, it's fun and you have to celebrate that too. And be like, no, like, yeah, you can take a picture with me.
Yeah. Right. And you know, the other thing that showed up last night that I thought was extremely interesting was, how much I learned, you know, not only from you guys, but like the intelligent questions that were asked.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
I learned so much about just the online space in general.
Yeah,
you
that was
know,
eye-opening.
Yeah, you know, and grooming that presence and like just how it can be used as a tool, like more effectively.
Yeah.
You know,
and how far it can actually go. Like, you know, like, I don't know, for me, and maybe I'm just green when I've learned about that is like, I just thought that influencers, for instance, got paid to do like posts and stuff, but they were talking about everything that they provide for their followers and how frequently they're interacting with them and stuff. I mean, it definitely was eye-opening. I was like, okay, I could totally step my game up there.
Oh yeah,
you know?
it was a tutorial in Instagram done right.
Sure, yeah, I know, and it was all stuff that I was kind of like, you kind of like you hear and you're like, yeah, okay. I guess I kind of just, buckle down.
It's like, oh, so by increasing my screen time, I'm not wasting time.
Yeah.
You know, because it comes down to efficiency for me.
Yeah.
Like me and Max went and got burritos afterwards last night, and I was sitting there like, you should have seen me just finger fucking my phone. It was so bad. He's already done eating. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm still working on this post. Like,
yeah, I know, right? I know. Well, and like responding to DMs alone, that's one thing that last night too, like I'm horrible with engagement on my, like I love posting. I love like getting people responding and stuff. And because I like to post things that, especially women in the space, like relate to, I've kind of been through it all with like huge self-image issues and everything. So once in a while, I'll even talk about the mindset from shifting from like an athlete more to being focused on like what I'm doing now business wise. And, I like to see that kind of feedback, but I'm also not great with going back and like
continuing the conversation.
Yes, which is, that's one of my things that I'm working on right now.
Yeah. Great segue. How was the transition away from competition to developing your business?
It was hard. It's hard. It's still hard. Luckily, I think the best thing that could have happened was CrossFit went through all of the big changes they had this year. So they had no regionals. Had there been regionals, to be completely honest with you, I probably would have ended up competing again this year. Okay. Just because it's just like it's the thing I've done for the last 6 years, and regionals is the funnest part about competing. Yeah.
I've heard that from multiple games athletes. It's like, regionals is like, this is just a drag on your body. Regionals was fun because it's regional. So like everybody that you see almost daily, really regularly, is at the regional level. And then it's, you're just one amongst many at the games. It seems like.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And the games, it was just different pressure too. Like regionals was just fun. 3 days, 6 events. Like you just go and I will say that having regionals being out of the picture this year made it a little bit easier in terms of FOMO, because I was like, all right, like I'm not really missing out, because I definitely wasn't sad not to do the Open. But the big change for me has just been I've had to let my body heal and recover from training. So I went from going in and having a ton of gratification and feeling awesome about like going and doing some crazy snatch complex and then having fun and posting it. And, sometimes CrossFit games, reposting it and, like that kind of stuff, and just having some kind of like, validation's not the right word, but it was my favorite thing to go lift heavy and have fun with it and just like crush some goals in the gym. And I get that same kind of thing from work now, but it was it was a tough transition for me because my training had to change pretty quickly. So the transition has been tough, needless to say. But I just kind of had to switch my obsession with training to my obsession with work.
I love it.
And I mean, of course I still train. I train like 60 to 90 minutes 5 or 6 days a week. So it's still definitely a huge part of my life. It's just for different reasons now.
Sure. That's a very interesting point. He talks about it in The Compound Effect. We just finished that book. And he talks about not removing things, but replacing things, and when you talk about using the word obsession, right? Replacing the obsession of training with the obsession of business. Yeah. And it really all just kind of happened perfectly. Like everything always seems to, whether or not you recognize it that way or not, like it did all just kind of like transition the way that it was supposed to. Right. Just being presented with opportunities at the right time and having some of it overlap and being a little overwhelmed here and then letting that overwhelming feeling, I guess, drive you into the next phase. So it all happened the way it was supposed to. And I can look
that now and say that.
Right.
Then I was like, this is not going to work, you know, like, I mean, that's me. Like, I always doubt everything. I'll be the first person to be like, no, that's a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like by virtue of Justin and Jason, you've got, you know, two critical people, but also it sounds like you're very cognizant of who you surround yourself with to save you from you.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, I'm not gonna do that. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. And
You're gonna crush it.
Yeah. You're like, okay.
Okay. If you don't believe it, I'll believe it for you until you believe. So let's go.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, between, like Justin and Jason, like they are always the ones. And, you know, I start to believe it more and more. And now I just need little nudges here and there when something's there, or I'll be the one to be like, hey, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
They're like, my husband will be like, what? I'm like, yeah, this is the new me.
I love it. That's so good. Well, you know, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished. I mean, if like, you can tell, I was flipping through this before you sat down. This is you. You know what I mean? And you should be proud of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For everybody in the 20%ers, where can we find and support you?
Yeah. So Facebook, it's just Cassidy Dickson. Instagram is Cassidy._Dickson. Cassidy.Dickson_.
Got it.
And other than that, like I'm all over the I-3 website, the NCI website. If you're interested in nutrition coach mentorship, you can email me at Cassidy@in3nutrition.com. But yeah, social is probably the best way to reach me, and I will engage back because you heard it here. That's my next goal.
That's right. Well, really appreciate you taking some time. I know that you're here working.
Thank you for having me.
And this has been. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while. We couldn't nail it down in Madison last year, so I'm glad we reconnected to make this happen.
Yes.
Yeah. And for all you 20%ers out there, remember, focus on the things that matter: health, wealth, relationships, and time. And until next time, have a good one.
See you guys.